Hey everybody, welcome back to my channel. My name is Sarah. If you're new to my channel, make sure to hit the subscribe button and also like this video. It really helps out my channel because my channel is really tiny, but we're trying to grow. So if you could subscribe or leave a like and a comment, that would help me a lot. So it's been a little while since I've made a video for this channel, and that's because I've been working on this video, which is a huge monster video covering all of the thrifting spots in Charlottesville. And when I decided to start filming this video or start developing it, I was like, oh, like it'll be fun. I'll just list like the couple thrift stores in Charlottesville. But really there are so many. So I have 17 on this list. I've broken them out into different categories to go through with you guys. So I really hope that this will help you get a sense of the thrifting scene in Charlottesville, whether you live here and you're just looking for new places to shop, or if you're coming for a visit and you want to spend your time thrifting, this is the ultimate guide to thrifting in Charlottesville. So there are a ton of amazing shops here and they have a huge variety of items. So to make it a little bit easier, I've broken down all of the stores into categories that we can go through. So here's kind of an overview of what this video is going to look like. So the first group we'll be looking at are a group of small local thrift stores. So like your true bread and butter local thrift stores, privately owned. Next will be consignment stores. So thrift stores that are a lot more curated, who only accept certain pieces, who have specific styles to them. Those will be next. Then I'll mention the couple of vintage stores that are in Charlottesville, and then charity shops, which are similar to the local thrift stores, except that they are attached to some kind of charity or group or organization that they donate their money back to. And finally, of course, we'll mention the chain thrift stores like Goodwill and Salvation Army that are in Charlottesville as well. So with all that in mind, let's just jump right into it. So the first one on our list is ReThreads. They're located in Allied Square. Their women's clothing selection is really large, and then they have a smaller room of men's clothing, as well as an area in the front of the store where they sell more local handmade pieces. So jewelry, they have some handbags, some stickers, a little small selection of other new pieces, but most of the store is secondhand women's clothing. I would say the pricing here is pretty fair. They're not like your bottom dollar thrift store prices like Goodwill, but they carry nicer brands. And so I would say an average item would run between like $10 and $20, but they also have quite a selection of vintage pieces and also high-end designer pieces. So of course those are more expensive, but in my opinion, I think the prices on those are very fair, and everything that's vintage or designer is in really, really good condition. I would say the highlights and best finds at this store would be their vintage selection. They have a really large vintage selection, I think larger than any of the other stores I'm going to mention other than the stores that are dedicated to vintage. So I would definitely check out their vintage rack while you're there. They also have an area of like evening dresses and going out dresses that are really pretty, as well as some jewelry and shoes as well. So I would say their women's clothing is really on point, and they have some unique vintage pieces to check out. Moving along to our second store, this is actually right next door to ReThreads, and this is Circa. So if you have been to Charlottesville before, I hope you've been to Circa because they are an amazing, amazing space. They are a huge store. It's 3 buildings that are kind of connected together, and it's mostly furniture and home decor. And they have a huge variety of vintage pieces, mid-century modern, all kinds of planters and pots and little tchotchkes. They sell records, they sell vintage record players. They have literally all types of home decor in this store. Tons of chairs, tons of tables, lots and lots of wall art, and there is so much in this store. It's a huge space. Every little crevice that you turn into, there's something else to find. I absolutely love going in here because you always will find something really, really unique and different. They also buy and sell, so if you have a piece that you want to sell to Circa, they will buy it from you and they will often come pick it up from you, which is really nice. And everyone that works there is super nice. The owners are really friendly, and they also do a lot of repairs of items too. So sometimes they'll get something in that's not in perfect condition and they'll reupholster it or they'll refinish the wood, and they have a little workshop in the back where they refinish some pieces. So I really appreciate that they make an effort to rescue some pieces that are beautiful but a little bit damaged, and then they put them out for sale in their new restored state. The pricing at Circa is a little bit all over the place. Like, I feel like I don't completely understand their pricing structure. When they buy things, they do buy them outright. They're not consigned. So I've seen some things in there that I think are great, amazing deals that I've bought right away. And then I've seen some other things that I don't understand why the price is so high. It could be that it's made by a designer, or it's, you know, it has something special about it that I just don't realize. But in my opinion, their prices are kind of all over the board. You can find stuff that are really like low, good deals, but you can also find things that are really expensive. So you just have to look. The highlights of Circa, the best things you can find there, I would say are definitely, other than the furniture. The furniture is amazing if you're in the market for furniture, but I love looking at all of their tchotchkes and knickknacks and planters. They have this big, beautiful room with all these windows where they have all of their little tiny pieces displayed on shelves, and I love going in there and looking at everything because there's always unique, cool, interesting stuff in there that you can grab to decorate your house. The next local shop in Charlottesville is actually 2-in-1. So the store is called Twice as Nice, and they have 2 locations that are across the street from each other off of Preston Avenue. So the first location is pretty small, and that one is mostly dedicated to women's clothing. They have a small room of men's clothing, and then they have some home decor as well. I would say the highlights here are really the women's clothing. They have some really, really nice pieces. Everything is in very, very good condition, and their prices are fair. They're a little higher than your average thrift store, but the selection is also a little bit nicer. So that's what I would look for there. I've seen a lot of more preppy brands there. So think Lily Pulitzer, Vineyard Vines, things like that. I mean, that's also influenced by the area that Charlottesville is. A lot of people are into that style. But there's tons of other brands there too. I've seen a lot of things from Anthropologie and Free People and more boho style too. So definitely check out all the women's racks while you're there, and also check out their home decor too. They have some interesting pieces. While I was there, I saw these really, really cute little swan planters that I was so on the fence about buying, and I didn't get them, but I'm kind of thinking about going back. And then the second location of Twice as Nice, which is across the street, is a lot bigger, and they have a much bigger selection. I would say this one also is majority women's clothing, but they also have quite a nice selection of furniture. They have some bigger furniture pieces in this one, like bed frames and dressers, mirrors, larger pieces because it's a larger space. So if you're looking for home decor, I would check them out as well. Next on our list is Attic Artifacts, and they're a small shop up on North 29 as you're leaving Charlottesville. And this was the first thrift store I ever went to in Charlottesville, and I didn't really think it was gonna be all that, but I've actually found some really cool pieces here. When you first come in, it's a little bit cluttered looking, but don't let that deceive you. Like right when you first come in is a big section of children's like toys and games and stuff, and it looks a little bit like, at least for me, that's never the stuff that I'm looking for, so that turned me off a little bit. And then they have some clothing racks and a bit of home decor and mirrors and things. But then if you turn the corner and go into the second room, they have a lot of really cool furniture and smaller home decor pieces, as well as glassware and things like that. So I would say this store is probably the least curated looking, like least aesthetically pleasing maybe out of all of them, but don't sleep on this store because they have some really, really nice pieces hidden in there, and their prices are really fair. I've never felt like something was overpriced in there, even if it wasn't something I wanted. Everything that I look at, I thought the price was really fair, and they have some really cool pieces. The owners are also super nice too, so definitely chat with them while you're in there. And the last store in this group of local thrift stores is actually not quite a local store, it's the Habitat store, and they have locations all over the place. But the reason I put them in the local category is because their mission is so local, and all the people that work there are local volunteers. But anyway, the Habitat store is an amazing, amazing space if you've never been to one. It's all things home, and not just home decor, but also home building. So this location is very, very large, and when you go in, you're on the top level, and it's more like furniture style pieces. So you'll see couches, chairs, tables, bed frames, rugs, mirrors. They have a section in the back where they have more antique pieces. There's lots of lamps upstairs. So decor is the bulk of the upstairs, but then when you go down their big giant staircase, they have a huge room in the basement that has more home building type of materials. So think front doors, windows, countertops, sinks, toilets, like all of that kind of stuff is downstairs. And it's really cool that if you were like redoing your bathroom or something, you could go there and buy like your countertops there secondhand, which I think is really, really cool. So definitely check out the downstairs. There's also some more furniture downstairs that just doesn't fit in their upstairs part. So I would definitely always go downstairs and poke around and see what they have. Okay, moving on to the next group of stores, we're now going to talk about consignment stores in Charlottesville. And the very first one I have to mention is, of course, Darling Boutique. I have worked with Darling. I just relaunched their website. I love the owner. I love all the girls that work there. It's a beautiful, amazing shop. So of course I'm biased, but I love Darling. They're on the downtown mall, kind of on the corner right next to the Water Street parking lot. And this store is really unique in Charlottesville. So when you first come in, she has a large selection of artisan-made items that are new. So think like candles, jewelry, skincare, makeup, all sorts of things that are handmade, mostly by local artists and designers. And everything is super fairly priced, beautiful quality. I absolutely love walking through there and seeing what's new. Also in the upstairs, she has a couple of racks of clothing. So she'll have like her new arrivals or her designer clothing pieces upstairs, and all the clothing at Darling is consigned. So it's highly, highly curated. So you'll bring in items and the owner will kind of go through them and accept what she wants to sell and give you back everything else. So the condition on everything is really good. The brands are really good, and they have a huge, huge selection. And then when you go down the stairs into their basement level, they have a lot more clothing options. I will say all the clothing at Darling is women's clothing. They don't really cater to men. Another thing I want to mention about Darling that I love is that in their dressing rooms, they have this little station where you can take a Post-it note and write a positive message to somebody and stick it up on the wall, so that later on when other people are trying clothes on in the store, they can look at all these positive affirmations and just feel good about themselves while they're trying on clothes. And I think that that's a really cute and fun idea that is really encouraging to their customers. So if you're in Charlottesville downtown, definitely go into Darling because you can support a women-owned business, you can support lots of other local artists through doing that, and you can encourage somebody else by writing a cute note on the wall. Who doesn't love that? The next shop I want to talk about is Natalie Dressed, and they are in a little plaza behind the Barracks Road Shopping Center, so they're kind of tucked behind. And this store is amazing if you love designer pieces. So their clothing is probably the highest quality, highest end consignment in Charlottesville. You can find Chanel, Prada, all kinds of designer high-end brands here for very, very, very fair prices. But she also has some other brands too that you would see everywhere. So she carries like Banana Republic and like more, even-ended brands that you can find everywhere. I have seen some Reformation dresses here that were amazing. A lot of her designer pieces are new with tags, and she also has a great selection of shoes too. So do not sleep on the shoes. Check out their shoes. They display them as just one of a kind. If you find a pair of shoes that you like, just bring it up to the counter and ask them to try on the other one. They'll bring it out to you because they have some really, really nice shoes in there. Natalie Dressed also does periodic markdowns of their items. So when you come in the back, you'll see this board that has like a color-coded map of whatever color the tag is, whether it's full price, 30% off, 50% off, or like 70% off. And then after their clothing goes to 70% off, when it's been there for 10 weeks, they donate it to one of the charity shops that we'll get to later. So that's really good to know about a lot of these thrift stores and consignment stores especially, is that when their pieces don't sell after a certain amount of time, they'll donate them to another thrift store. The last consignment store I'll mention, I actually didn't make it in there to film, but they're called Consignment House, and they're on the downtown mall. And their shop is kind of a mixture of like vintage and antique pieces. So a little bit higher end, a little bit more expensive, but they have quite a selection of art. That's kind of their main thing. And also some furniture pieces and some smaller decor like vases and glassware and that sort of thing. So definitely stop in there and chat with them. I met some of their employees recently and they're so fun and nice to talk to. So that's another good one where if you're just strolling around the downtown mall and want to chat with someone, stop into Consignment House and look at their amazing pieces and talk to their staff because they're super nice. The next category I want to talk about is vintage stores. There are actually 2 vintage stores in Charlottesville that I know of. By the way, I'm sorry to anyone if I missed your store, if I didn't name your favorite store, I'm sorry. I was trying to make a list of everyone I could think of. I definitely may have missed a few people here and there, but I tried my best to make this as all-inclusive ultimate thrift guide as I could. So anyway, there are 2 vintage stores in Charlottesville that I know of. The first one is one of the first shops that I ever went to the first time I visited Charlottesville, and it's called Low Vintage. They are also on the downtown mall, and I take it that the name Low Vintage comes from the fact that their store is kind of underground. So you're gonna go into this like long walkway and then go downstairs, and their whole store is like in a basement, which is really neat. It's a huge, massive store. This is like the mecca for vintage clothing. If you love vintage clothing, vintage dresses, vintage sweaters, vintage menswear, this is the place to go. They have a lot of men's stuff, which is really awesome. They have quite a selection of wedding dresses and party dresses that are vintage. And they also sell records as well as like shoes and belts and accessories. So definitely look through this entire store. There are so many gems in here, and I would say the prices are really fair. They're a little bit high, but they also have really, really nice pieces, and the tags on all the pieces are also really detailed. So you get a really good sense of what you're buying, what era it's from, if it has anything special about the designer or the piece, you'll know from the tag because they have really dedicated people working there and researching all their pieces. One con of Low Vintage is that they don't really have a website or an Instagram that they update very much, so it's kind of hard to connect with them online, but I think that's in some ways even more exciting to like go into the store, have no idea what you're gonna find, and always find a treasure in there for sure. The other vintage store I didn't make it to film either, but they're a really cool shop called Arsenic Old Lace, and they're actually right next door to Darling. So if you're stopping into Darling for consignment, go next door to Arsenic Old Lace, and she has a big selection of clothing as well as home decor that's all vintage, true vintage. And you'll also find some cool vintage artwork, framed pieces, vintage coats. And I just really like the style of the woman that runs the store, like the way she puts together her window displays and her mannequins, and her displays inside the store is very cohesive, and I take it she's also very knowledgeable about all her pieces, so definitely chat to her while you're in there as well. The next category of shops is charity stores. So the first one I want to mention is the SPCA Rummage store. And this is the one I was talking about earlier where Natalie Dressed, the high-end consignment store, donates things to SPCA store once they are expired after they've been there for 10 weeks. So I have found like Alice and Olivia pieces at the SPCA store for like $10. Like, definitely check out their new arrivals rack because it's usually stuff that they've just gotten from the high-end boutiques. So check those out and you'll find really, really, really beautiful pieces for really cheap. This store is also very big. They have quite a selection of women's and men's clothing as well as children's clothing. They have a large area with books as well as a really, really large area of home decor, glassware, tea sets, all sorts of things. And because the charity they support is the SPCA, of course they have an area in one of the back rooms where they have a large selection of animal related things. So like leashes, food bowls, all kinds of stuff that you could need for your pet, you can buy secondhand at the SPCA store. And of course, the proceeds from the SPCA store go towards the SPCA animal shelter. We adopted our cats from the local SPCA in Annapolis, and so I'm really happy to be able to support an SPCA chapter in Charlottesville. So definitely check them out. It's a worthwhile place to spend your money, and they have some really, really cool pieces in there. The next store I want to mention is Uplift Thrift. This is a really cool little small hole-in-the-wall type of thrift store, and they are partnered with a charity called On Our Own, which provides support for people who have substance abuse issues, mental health issues, and struggles related to trauma that they've experienced. So I love supporting this store because I know that my money is going back to a group of people that I love supporting and helping. Everything there is even prices, so like all the tops are $4, all the dresses are $6. They're not all priced individually, which I really like because sometimes you can find some high-end stuff that's like under $10, which is really cool. They also have a selection in the back where they have more home decor and children's items, as well as a rack in the front of their store that's a clearance rack, so everything on that rack is $2. And it's just a really pleasant environment. I've only ever had positive experiences. The last charity thrift store that I know of in Charlottesville is called Schoolhouse Thrift, and they're located over off of Rio Road. And their store, I believe, is through an Episcopal church, so there are some religious ties there, but their charity supports a local group that helps the elderly. So that's what the money from that store goes back to. I believe 100% of the funds go back to that, and the store is staffed by volunteers. This is another place that's kind of like a hole in the wall. Like when you first walk in, it looks kind of weird. You're not sure what this is gonna be, but I have found some really cool stuff here. So when you first come in, there's a big area with books, and then there's a room that has like children's items and clothing and games and things like that. And then the women's clothing is in the back on the left. And it's a pretty large selection for the size of the store that it is. And I found some really cool pieces here before. A lot of like sweaters, a lot of a lot of vintage stuff that like is surprisingly really cute and really cheap that like you wouldn't find anywhere else. Because it's through a church, I think sometimes what happens is you'll have like these kind of wealthy older women donating a lot of their stuff. So some of it is like old lady stuff that you have to wade through, but because of that, they have some like really well cared for, really beautiful vintage pieces mixed in there. So definitely look through, don't be scared away if it looks sketchy to you. It's a really, really cool store. They also have a selection of men's items as well as home decor and some really cute glassware and mugs and things like that. Last category is of course the chain thrift stores in Charlottesville. Every town has a few chain thrift stores. So in Charlottesville we have two Goodwills. One is in Mill Creek and the other one is on North 29. Both of them I think are pretty similar. The one I prefer is the one on North 29 because it's closer to my house. It's also a lot bigger and their selection is a lot bigger. But you know, if you've been to Goodwill, you kind of know the drill. Everything is Goodwill prices. Everything is a little bit messy and thrown together and you kind of have to dig through to find the good things. But I have found numerous amazing pieces at this Goodwill for like $4. So definitely take a look through. They just rearranged the store so they have kind of a more organized setup right now. It used to be kind of like women's clothes were here, but they were also over here and they were also back here. So now they have like all the clothes put together. They have all of the furniture and home items put together and it's a lot easier to navigate now. So definitely check that out. The one in Mill Creek is fine as well. I mean, it's a Goodwill. That one is also like pretty organized where they have, you know, the clothing in one area and everything else somewhere else. But that one's a little bit smaller. And I would say the selection there isn't quite as good as the one on 29, but it's fine. I mean, it's Goodwill. There's also a Salvation Army location in Charlottesville on Cherry Avenue. And to be honest, I would not recommend shopping for clothes here. I've been here several times and I've looked through all the clothing racks and I've really never found anything. Like I think that a lot of the clothes here tend to be just like plain single tone, like sweaters or t-shirts or something. It's like just not very interesting stuff, at least for me. But what this store is really great for is their home decor. So they have some really amazing mirrors, glassware, kitchenware, all kinds of that stuff for very, very good prices. Also, the last time I was there, I noticed they had a couple of absolutely gorgeous vintage vanities. One was already sold or else I swear I would have bought it. It was so beautiful and it was a really, really fair price. So definitely take a look through their home decor. Not so much the clothes at this location, but the home decor is completely worth going there for. Absolutely. And the last chain thrift store in Charlottesville is Plato's Closet, which is not in every city, but they're pretty common around the country. Plato's Closet is interesting. It is more curated where you bring your stuff in and then they'll decide whether they want to accept it or not. So it's kind of like a consignment store in that way, but it's also a chain and their prices are much lower compared to a lot of other consignment stores. And I would say this store is more geared towards like teenagers and people in their young 20s, though I have found pieces here that would work for like any age. I would say the style tends to be a lot younger. The thing that I would definitely recommend looking at this Plato's Closet location is the shoes. I have found two of my favorite, cutest pairs of shoes at this Plato's Closet and they were both under $10. So definitely check out their shoe selection. They also have a pretty large selection of men's clothing. The other thing I really like about Plato's Closet is that they have a pretty wide selection of plus size clothing. So they go up to size 6X and they have really cute, trendy looking stuff that's in plus size, which can be really hard to find, especially at regular thrift stores. So definitely check them out if you're plus size and you're looking for something more trendy. So guys, that's my quick ultimate guide to Charlottesville thrifting. I really hope you enjoyed it and I hope it was helpful. I will link in the description box all of these stores and their websites and where you can find them so that you can check them out. Ultimately, I love all these stores. I would highly recommend shopping with any of them. I love shopping secondhand, saving things from going to the landfill, giving things a new life, not contributing to traditional capitalism by buying new items. So definitely a really cool way to do that. There's lots of options in Charlottesville. Almost anything that you want to buy, you can probably find secondhand here. So thank you guys so much for watching. Please give this video a like and a comment and share it with your friends if you know anyone that loves thrifting or loves Charlottesville and just wants to learn about all the opportunities here. And if you guys would like to see me make a video like this for any other cities, like I was thinking Richmond or like Northern Virginia or even Washington, DC, let me know and I can make this video again for different cities and we can just kind of make it a series going through all the thrift spots in different cities. Thank you guys so much for watching. Bye!